Bog, evo možemo lagano krenuti. Hvala svima na dolasku. Ja sam Filip Šišić, jedan od organizatora ovih Engineering Management Meetupa. Sa mnom je Jelena Jelušić, naš treći koorganizator Marko Velić nije trenutno tu, nadam se da će doći, često dođe na after party, pa nadam se da će doći danas. Evo, hvala vam svima na dolasku. Ja uvijek pitam na početku, ali ima neko da je prvi put na Meetupu, pa čist mi sam dignite ruku da vidimo. Opa, ima čak nešto ljudi, onda, Isuse, udavit ćemo ljude, nećemo previše, ajde. Uvijek ispričamo kao kako je to počelo i kako smo imali malu zamisao koja je narasla. Znam da ovi koji dolaze redovito su to čuli 100 puta, pa neću u detalje, ali evo, završavamo 4. godinu ovih meetupa koji su krenuli onak stvarno vrlo sa skromnim očekivanjima. Mislili smo da ćemo skupiti par desetaka ljudi koje ovo zanima. Evo, kažem, 4. godina, 14. meetup, imamo preko 1000 članova u našoj meetup grupi, community koji stvarno raste stalno i baš smo jako zadovoljni i ponosni na ovo i totalno se isplati svaki put kad vidimo ljude koji napune dvoranu. Jelena će vam reći ukratko ko tu uopće danas sjedi, malo da je sami znate, da znate s kim ćete se poslije podružiti, poslije službenog dijela, pa evo Jelena, preuzmi please.
Može. Dobar dan i od mene svima. Mi kod prijava uvijek pitamo tko nam se zapravo prijavljuje, čisto da malo imamo osjećaj kao publici, kako su očekivanja i da možemo onda i sam sadržaj prilagoditi. Tako da evo danas još vjerujem da će nam se nešto ljudi pridružiti kasnije, ali kod prijava bilo je 1/4 ljudi koji su individual contributori, skoro 70% su već na nekim management rolama, znači najviše seniora što se tiče ovih IC-eva, a što se tiče menadžera, to su role, znači team leadovi i engineering menadžeri. Što se tiče motivacije i karijernih aspiracija, odnosno razloga zašto uopće dolazite i volite ove naše meetupe, zapravo menadžeri su rekli da većina njih želi razviti neku novu vještinu, mislim ovo definitivno je pravo mjesto i vrijeme za to, a svi vi koji ste individual contributori, zapravo većina je rekla da razmišlja o nekoj voditeljskoj ulozi, ali još uvijek nisu sigurni, niste sigurni je li to prava stvar za vas, pa je ovo neko mjesto za malo istražiti i saznati više o tome. Evo, Filip je već rekao da naša grupa ima preko 1000 ljudi. Ja bih rekla da to je jedno od većih, barem jedan od većih meetupa u Hrvatskoj, ako ne i u regiji, pogotovo što se tiče teh tema. Tako da nas to jako veseli. Ako još niste se prijavili na grupu, pozivam vas da to učinite jer tamo ćete saznati sve najbitnije informacije, kad su novi meetupi, ko zapošljava engineering menadžere i sve zapravo novosti oko naših aktivnosti. Sad, kao što vi većina vas zna, mi ovo radimo potpuno volonterski i bez sponzora i partnera ne bi to bilo moguće, tako da naravno danas nam je glavni sponzor Fonoa i s njima smo u potpunosti napravili cijeli ovaj meetup, cijeli event, od samog kreiranja sadržaja do toga da su nas podržali, da imamo fotke, snimanje, bit će after movie i naravno nakon ovog službenog dijela imat ćemo jednu lijepu adventsku fešticu, s obzirom da smo ušli već u 12. mjesec, tako da tu ispred bit će servirane kobasice, fritule, kuhano vino, bit će i nekih vege opcija, falafel, ja mislim ako se ne varam. Tako da kogod može, ostanite s nama, nemamo, ja mislim, nekakav rok do kad možemo izaći, ali obično se podružimo barem sat, dva tu ispred. Evo sad bi pozvala ispred Fonoe Dinu Kertisa da nam se malo obrati da vas pozdravi.
Dobro večer, hvala svima i da ne mislite da se pravim Engles, samo zbog naših gostiju iz Španjolske malo se predstavio na engleskom. So thanks everyone for coming. I've been with Fonoa for a year and a half now. I'm based here in Zagreb and my role is to force engineers to come to these meetups and talk. And we've been now partnering with Engineering Management Meetup for a year now, and I would love to thank to Jelena and Filip for the opportunity to tell you how we do or how we try to do engineering at Fonoa. And for those of you who don't know, we are a Croatian company that does indirect tax automation, basically PDVs of the world. And first, our CTO Pablo is going to tell you about all the mistakes that he has done in his career. He's going to be very philosophical about it. But then Antonio and Victor, our EMs, are going to tell you how they implement those Pabloisms in practice and make their teams action them in their day-to-day work. So please don't be afraid to participate, enjoy, ask questions, and be harsh with them because that's why they're here, and have fun. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, so we'll switch to English now. Hopefully everyone knows English. I will welcome Pablo Carranza, CTO of Fonoa, for our first talk. Please welcome everyone, Pablo.
Do we have the right slides? We don't. Yes. Oh, we need a guy. We need a guy. Okay, so just as a start, hello, I'm Pablo Carranza. I go by many names, actually. What can I say about myself? So, I live in Spain. I'm originally from Argentina. I moved to Europe in 2002, give or take. I also had a short stint in Ireland, living in three countries already. When we started having this conversation, as Dino expressed, he basically dragged me here. So anyway, here we are. He told me to talk about async work, how does it work, cultural fit is important as a tech assessment, and also why incidents foster growth, hope is forbidden, etc., etc. So the answer to life, the universe, and everything, you know. Anyway, I have no idea how I will cover this. What I will try to do is I will try to tell you a little bit about myself. I will try to go a little bit to the past of what I did, all the mistakes I made in the past, and then we will talk about the present. The future, I mean, forget about the future. We're just building it up, and we have no idea what's going to happen anyway. So I work at Fonoa. I've been here for 4 years and something. My job is, I have no idea what I do. I do stuff. Whatever happens comes to me, and I have to fix it or look the other way sometimes, or whatever. It just needs to get solved. That's pretty much the deal, right? So far seems to be working. Initial challenge, when I joined, we have in between 2 to 3 companies, we want to thread them together such that they make sense. And by the way, we want to create another 3 more companies and add them to the mix. It was a little bit of a complicated task. Also, by the way, there was no technical founder. So what ended up happening is that the initial founders hired a lot of contractors. We love contractors. They are great at doing things. They all work really fast. They do a lot of things. They just don't talk to each other. And they just do each one of them whatever they want to do, completely isolated from the rest. So each one of them built like 5 different companies for one problem. It was a little bit of a mess. So far, we solved that. We're doing good. We're growing. We're growing a lot, more and more. Sorry. But we still have challenges, of course. The technical challenge is kind of, I'm not going to say it's solved, but it's going well. We're fixing it, give or take, well. But we have more challenges that we have to deal with. One of them, for example, is that engineering works in a specific kind of way. We are behaving much more like an AP system. I don't know if you're aware. Everybody is aware of the CAP theorem? No? Consistency, availability, partition tolerance? Okay, so engineering works as an AP system. We are highly available, but we're inconsistent. Eventually, we agree on things. That's pretty much it, right? But we do work all the time. Now, if you move to another kind of organization, like, for example, sales, they are heavily consistent, but they're unavailable. They really need all of them to be in the same room to make a decision. They love meetings. We hate meetings. So it's a challenge for us to actually operate with part of the company that operate radically different, right? It's really complicated. Of course, we know what the customers want. They sometimes do, sometimes don't. We have to catch up. We have to agree with them. There's a lot of tasks. There's a lot of problems that come from there. And of course, ARR is above everything else. That's, if you have a company, either it makes money or it dies. That's pretty much it. So we go after money. Before working at Fonoa, back in 2019, I think it was, I was working at Cabify, ride-hailing company back from Spain. If you were ever in Spain, you probably know them. Maybe you do, maybe you don't, it doesn't matter. I entered it as an architecture, something, don't remember the title. I had like 4 different titles in the way. I ended up being VP of engineering. I changed title once every 6 months, I think. I didn't really care until it mattered, which was a little bit late in the way. In any case, the task there when I joined the company was interesting because the company didn't know exactly what they were doing. Remember having an outage and asking, are we down? And somebody saying yes. Okay, how do you know we're down? I don't know, this system is failing. So what does the company do? We take people from point A to point B. Okay, so pull up the phone. Okay, try to request a driver, sorry. Request, I got a driver assigned. Are we down? Okay, what is everybody else doing here? Get out of here, go back to work, right? It was really interesting to actually see that people don't really think what they are actually doing, right? There was a lot of work to do to help them learn to make decisions and to help them focus on the things that actually matter. Just asking annoying questions that people didn't actually ask themselves, right? Why did I left Cabify? I was doing good, I was growing. At some point, I hit the limit of the decisions I was able to make. That's when the title started to matter a lot, right? I have really crazy ideas on how to build an engineering culture. I usually call them common sense. It's not that common, actually. Surprise. It was shocking for me, but it's the way it is. But I needed to have more room to actually play with these ideas, to actually push them forward, right? What I saw is that we made a lot of mistakes. Me the first, by the way. I was the first one to make mistakes. We actually built a system that allowed for the wrong incentives. We ended up having people fighting for promotions, just doing things to get promotions, which was, from my perspective, the wrong way of doing it, because they were not actually really adding any value. The learning was that we need to run away from checklist promotions. We need to run away from all this dogmatism, all these ways of actually saying exactly, if you do exactly this, then you're gonna get that, right? The side effect of that is that at Fonoa we have a career path where people says, but it's too ambiguous. Yes, by definition it's ambiguous. Yes, I know, I'm not gonna tell you exactly what you have to do. It's up to you to figure it out. Before that, back in 2015, I worked at GitLab. You may have heard of them. If any of you heard about the big time in which we deleted the production database, that was my team. Okay, with that out of the way, I joined as a DevOps engineer. For some reason, people believe that I do know anything about infrastructure. I have no idea how that happened. They made me the leader of the infrastructure team 1 week later. One of the terms or the phrases that we coined was, this was a lot of fun, let's never do it again. What I saw there, right, the main thing at GitLab, or my main learning at GitLab, was GitLab itself, they sell a package that customers deploy on-premise. Because companies, generally speaking, have, 100 developers, 200, 500, 1,000? They fit in one box. Doesn't really matter. It's actually quite small, right? They make the money by selling this package. GitHub.com itself, nobody cares about it. It's a marketing gimmick. It's a let me show you how you can actually run a large thing with this package. In reality, it's not like that, right? In reality, we had to do a lot of crazy shit. We did a lot of things to make it run. But the learning was that what I imagined was the thing that the company wanted was not really like that, was not the case at all. So it didn't really matter what I wanted to do. So at some point I said, you know what, my job doesn't really matter. I'm wasting my time here, right? Before that, back in 2012, I was pulled by AWS to Dublin. I was in the interview with the principal engineer. He was telling me over food, quite relaxed, hey, we're growing, this thing called the cloud. I'm talking about 2012, not everybody knew what it was. This guy was telling me, we used half the IP space in the Amazon production network. We're growing twice every year. We are running out of IPs. We have 1 year, go, right? It was actually interesting, right? It was an interesting problem. The way to solve this problem was to actually grab a lot of networking engineers. The problem is that you had to hire them, and you only had 1 year. And also, when you went to market to actually get networking engineers that were able to operate in a thing called the cloud that nobody else knew what it was, they don't actually exist. They don't exist in the market at all. So you had to do something else. So what is it that we did? That was actually my team. What we did is that we gave them a lot of tools to introduce safe change into the network, right? Of course, in the process of doing this, we may have taken down USTs once or twice. It happens. With these tools, we forced them to script how they introduce change into the network. Then we started measuring which were the actions that worked better. Then we started grabbing those scripts and started building our own networking engineers with the best parts, the parts that we know would work better. And then we started just releasing our networking engineers into the network because they don't exist, so we just build them. And by the end of the year, we managed to automate 97% of the change, which was actually a massive success. The problem was that networking engineers were not really happy. They said, my job is at stake now. I don't want you to automate me. If you automate me, I'm out of a job. And in reality, yes, you are out of a job. Your job doesn't scale. You have to change it, right? You have to adapt to the things that are coming. So what we have to do was we have to find a way of teaching them that the world as they know it today is not there anymore. And now they have to change to something else. We basically made a title change, and we started putting a lot of incentives for them to actually go towards what we called a software networking engineer or something. Don't remember the exact title, but it was something like that, in which we kind of told them, your job now is to find ways of having machines doing this for you, because you're not enough. And that's it, right? Why I left AWS, right? I had a lot of fun. I remember back then, it was the time in which people was saying that AWS was a terrible place to be because, people cry in the bathrooms and such. Not my experience at all. I had a really fun time. I had a lot. It was great, honestly. We joked in between us every time somebody went to the bathroom, are you going to go crying? It was like that. We just joked all the time. But there can only be AWS. They moved me to Dublin. I was living in Spain. I'm sorry, man. I just need the sun. I just can't live like that. Anyway, what I saw, technology. You can do whatever you want. The sky is the limit. You can invent crap like crazy. You can even beat speed of light. If you build a system that actually allows for local decision making, you can beat speed of light, as in you don't need latency at all. The problem is always the people. This is the point in time in which I actually said, there's a thing about management. There's a thing about building a system that is actually built with humans, not only machines. I mean, machines are a reflection of the humans. But if you design the system, the human system, in the right way, technology is going to solve itself. Right? That's the thing you need to pay attention to. What I learned is that sometimes people will fight against everything, even if it's good for them. Right? How do you get a person, how do you handle a person that is drowning, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to calm them down. Sometimes to calm them down, you have to actually beat them up. It is what it is, right? In any case, before this I did a lot of other things. As I said, I moved to Europe in 2002. I also had a past in Argentina. Nobody can find it, don't worry. But I love learning about history. I love learning about the past. I love learning from other people who did it before, who had to learn a lot of things. So I do pay a lot of attention to big guys, like, for example, Charlie Munger. I don't know if you know anything about this guy. You may have heard of him. Tell me your incentive. I'll tell you what the outcome is. I think those are wise words. You can also say, tell me how you measure. I'll tell you how I behave, right? In reality, if you think about what the incentive is, you can already think, or you can already foresee what is the thing that is actually going to be happening, right? And then, similar to this, another one that is actually important for managers particularly, culture is the behaviors that you reward and you punish, right? These two sentences are key. Right, these two are key for building pretty much everything. You need to think what are the things you're going to be rewarding, because that has to be your incentive. If there's any level of cognitive dissonance in between those two, whatever you build, entropy will win. It's that simple. Humans are gonna human. That's it. You can put as much energy as you want. Eventually, they will win. Okay? So, how is it that we do it at Fonoa? We have this one, coined by me, right? Make it easy to do right. Make it painful to do wrong, right? But don't hire a masochist. Be careful with that. You really don't want someone who wants to have the pain, right? You have to be careful who you select. That is actually quite important, and you may realize of this a little bit too late if it gets to the point. So, what is easy at Fonoa? What do we optimize for, right? Building and deploying. That's number one, right? What do we measure? We measure how much time it takes for you to get from an idea to code that is deployed in production. Deployed in production means it's taking customer load, right? If it's not taking customer load, it's not deployed. It doesn't exist. I think that we're under a day in lead time. We deploy in between 3 to 6 times per developer per day, which adds up to 2,000 times a month, give or take, depending on the month. We deploy more on Fridays, by the way. We love Friday deployments. What else is easy? Figuring things out on your own. We optimize for this. We optimize for local decision making. We allow people, we force people, we select people that can figure things on their own. Right? If you cannot do that, you're going to have a hard time with us. You're not going to be happy. It's going to be hard for you. And we also select for communication. North, south, east, west, right? Like a data center, either outside or in between the team. In between the team, you speak the same language. You need to talk outside of the team, you know how to translate. You know what other words to use. You know how to talk to non-technical people, because that's going to be part of your job. If you need to figure things out on your own, you need to be able to communicate. If you cannot communicate, you're on your own. You cannot do anything, right? Another one that we coined is human communication is basically a miracle, right? I'm Argentinian. I live in Spain. We speak Spanish, right? No, we don't. We don't speak the same Spanish at all. I had to learn to speak Spanish again. It was shocking and a humbling experience. I was saying things, I was looking at the face of the other person who was horrified by what I said, and he was getting a completely different meaning of what I was trying to say. It happened a lot. What is painful? Making your problem someone else. They're laughing, so you know what I'm talking about. If you try to make your problem somebody else's problem, it's going to come back and it's going to be twice as large. It's just the way it is, right? If you own something, you just own it, that's it. You have to play with it, right? Building a solution that is looking for a problem, that's not going to be fun. You have to pay forward, right? You cannot use passive voice. If you say, oh, this has to be solved, you're going to be volunteered. We do volunteer a lot of people. We just say, this is yours. You have been volunteered. Good luck. Right? If you speak up, it's yours. What else is painful? Building hard-to-operate systems. That is another thing that is actually quite interesting, right? You run what you build. It's yours. If it wakes you up 3 a.m. in the morning, it's your problem. If it wakes you up 3 a.m. in the morning once, it's okay. If it wakes you up 3 a.m. in the morning twice, that's not so great. The third time is on me, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and the seventh, etc., until you fix it. I'm going to go around and shoot things in the head until you just go back and fix it. Right? If it's painful once and you don't do anything about it, I mean, that's on you, man. You have to own it. And how do we allow for this to happen? Because this is a classic question we get from candidates, right? Do you allow for fixing tech debt? Well, we always allocate 20% of the time for what we call operations, which is maintenance, right? We schedule maintenance. If you don't schedule your car maintenance, your car is going to schedule it for you. And it's not going to be fun. So we always allow for 20% of your time to be used on this. as a token of gratitude, I expect you to never actually mention the words technical debt. It's not allowed. Okay? You can go and fix whatever you want. Anytime. Politics. That is painful. That is painful for everybody. I tell people, punch me in the face, it's fine, we're gonna fight, it's okay. Right? Stab me in the back, you can do that once. That's it. You wanna play politics? I will figure it out. And it's not gonna look good on you. Okay? And drama. That one is also really painful. Really quick, short pain. One conversation and we're done. Blame, victimism, heroism. You may be wondering why the third, right? Why heroism? So, blame is about shifting to somebody else. Victimism is saying this is happening to me because of you, right? And heroism is that person is helping us out and is helping us all, right? The one thing that is in common in between all three is that it's not on you, you don't own it. You are surrendering yourself to somebody else. You're powerless. I'm sorry, I'm a stoic. That's it. But how? How do you build this, right? You have to start with just hiring. That's it. How do you hire? You have to answer two questions. Just two questions. Number one, can you do the work, right? How do cooks hire? Cooks hire by getting the person, getting them in the kitchen for one day. Let's see if they know how to do shit. And then that's it, you get an offer. Or no, thank you. So what do we do with them? We get our candidates to actually ship to production. A fake production, but production. Does it work or doesn't? That's it. Code beauty. Your customers don't care. That's not a metric. Second question, do we want to work together? Right, human level question. Are we okay spending half of our conscious life in the same place? Are we fine with it, with making the investment? Because that's gonna matter. I mean, it's half your conscious life. It's a lot of time, right? Hint, what you have to do here is, there are two kinds of things you have to pay attention to. Number one is values, number two is opinions, right? Opinions is what you believe is true. Newsflash, that changes over time. What I believe was true 20 years ago is not the same as today. If it is the same, I mean, good on you, but you learn nothing. Values, what you believe is important. The things that you're not going to be negotiating with, right? If you believe that honesty is important, that's not going to change. That's going to stay there, right? Find out what is important for you. Find the people who roughly aligns with you in what you believe is important, right? We value curiosity. We value getting shit done. We value ownership. We value finding it out for yourself, right? However it is, it's kind of your problem. We make sure that you do that. If you don't do that, you're going to struggle with us. It's not going to be fun. Also, if you ask them about the past, if you interview your candidates and you ask them about the past, you're going to get them explaining what they did and why it mattered. That's roughly going to be what they're going to be doing in the future. Behavioral interviewing, if you want to search for it, that works, kind of. But what else do we do? We align incentives, right? We pay a lot of attention to what are the incentives. Simple things you have to think about. If you build something, what is the incentive of the salespeople to actually go and sell it? If you build something that is actually impossible to sell, will they sell it? Oh no, they will just go for whatever is easier. Unless you give them some friction and you make it hard to sell the other thing, people is going to naturally go towards the least effort. It's just what humans do, right? We're lazy, and that's good, that's great. So you have to use it. And of course, you have to always ask yourself, who is going to win? If I make this incentive, who is going to win, right? My learning at Cabify. If we build a system of promotion that actually allows for gamification. People will gamify it. That's who we are, right? If you build it ambiguous and suddenly it's not gamifiable, they're gonna be pissed a little bit at the beginning, then they're gonna cry a little bit, and they're gonna go through the whole, what's the word, grief cycle, and then eventually they're just gonna accept it and move on. And they go back to work, which is exactly what you want, right? If it's a zero-sum game, one wins, the other loses, that's kind of the wrong incentive, right? And if everybody loses, that's by definition stupidity, right? You have to find a way of building a system where everybody wins. Then that adds a lot of value. So, finishing a little bit up, what did I tell you? Master incentives, that's number one. Why does it matter that we do what we do? Who cares? Right? If we build a product that nobody cares about, does it matter? Nah, not really. Doesn't matter. That's going to drive behavior. Number two, ask the right questions. Right? Opinions are answers. What is the question that is behind that? And for bonus points, what is the question behind the question? Right? What is the problem behind the problem that you're bringing? That is actually much more interesting because that actually explains why people do what they do. Right? When somebody says they want something, they usually want it because of some other reason behind it. Hire the right people. Make it easy. Right? If you find the right people, if you hire people who manage themselves, you don't need managers. And that's the best place to be as a manager. Being a manager, having nothing to do. I mean, come on, man, hammocking all day. That's the best place to be. That's the job you have to build for yourself. Granted, it's not like that because you're going to have to deal with everything else. But at least you're not going to be having to deal with your own organization. That's not going to be a problem. And profit, of course, obviously. That's all I have. Any questions?
Do we have questions for Pablo? Yeah.
Hi. Oh, I can hear myself quite well. Hi, my name is Tomislav. I have a question. So this is all amazing, but we all know how the market is in Croatia and in the world, and there's like a distribution of people who have some kind of skills or don't, right? And in the end, you're going to, at one point, need somebody to do the job in your project. When you're trying, do you compromise at some point? And when you compromise, what's the order of these characteristics that you've said that you compromise on, right? What do you compromise on first? What's the most important, least important? And what's your experience with that?
Okay, so let me see if I get the question right. The question is, which traits do I compromise on when we are hiring people, depending on what's available in the market? Okay, cool. So the reality is that humans are wide, and you're going to find a lot of different people. And I mean, it's the beauty of humans. Each one is different. Each one is a snowflake. I don't compromise on pretty much anything. But there's a but here. If you find somebody who doesn't have the skills, and by skills I mean something that you can read in a book or Google app and figure out, or get an LLM to write it for you, then is that important? Or the thing that is important is the person who is good enough to actually say, oh, I don't know this, I have to learn it. So the one thing that defines intelligence is adaptability. So look for adaptability. Then the rest, it's just a matter of time, space, allowing them to do things. But again, what we build is a system that is an AP system. It's optimized for local decision making, which means we allow people to make a lot of decisions. And we also allow them to make a lot of mistakes. The one thing we say is, it's fine to make a mistake once. It's not fine to make the same mistake twice. Right? And the third time is going to be automated just to make sure that you just go and fix it. Right? So My answer is good in my environment. It may not be good in yours, which forces you to actually take a couple of steps back and take a look at your whole environment to understand what is the thing that you can bring in that will help you out. And that is what I was saying about designing a system, right? You have to design a system. The organization itself and the human organization itself is also a system, right? Take a look at it, see how it behaves, then decide what you can do. What I would compromise on? Nothing. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Hi, I'm Philip. Thank you for the talk. Wanted to ask, well, you mentioned that communication is very important, and I got from your talk that it's important so that you know what you really need to do. It's that's why it's important. But the other thing is also, you mentioned you need to do it on your own. So does that mean you are not allowing teamwork? And how that works in that sense? You know, like 1 plus 1 is greater than 2 and things
So
like that. Okay.
Let me see if I get it right. The question is, because we expect people to figure things out on their own, we don't allow them to work as a group. Yeah. So you have individuals who operate as individuals, meaning that they're a single unit, but humans naturally are gregarious and they will just team up naturally because that's what humans do. Right. So we expect, of course, people to communicate east and west. Right. We expect them to communicate across the team. We expect them to team up. We expect them to operate nicely. We expect them. That is one of the things we do. The first thing, or one of the first things that you have to go through in the hiring process is that you have to be accepted by the tribe. The tribe is the people you're going to be working with. So teamwork, I mean, I don't have to foster it. I expect people to just talk to each other. If you're an asshole, you're not welcome. That's it. You're out. So if I have to put energy into getting them to operate as a team, I'm hiring the wrong people. They have to figure that out themselves. Team up, by all means, right? We have our people here. They team up all the time. They talk to each other. They communicate. We share a lot of information. We have our meetings as a group. We celebrate our failures, as everybody else should be doing. We communicate every time we have an incident. It doesn't happen often lately, but every time we have an incident, we introduce a report. Everybody reads it. We share it. We share the learnings. We team up naturally to fix things. We're just flat. That's it.
Do we have more questions? No? Last chance.
Over there.
Hi, just a quick question. How does this work with juniors, and how many juniors do you have in your team?
Good question. So the first question I would have back is, what is a junior? How do you define, or how do you identify the difference in between a junior and a senior, right? Or a staff or a master of the universe? I have no idea, because title inflation, right? The way we see juniors is people who has not been exposed to something larger than a project, give or take. That's how we think of it. Can be somebody who just come out of the uni or something like that, and they had to operate in a small environment, but they were not able to see what happens after their immediate environment, right? We see it as a scope problem, so to speak. The way we do, or the way we handle this, is that we usually influence the pairing of people such that a junior is always going to have somebody who is a little bit more, not like super staff, whatever, like one more level, like mid-level or senior, maybe, as much as senior, because they need to roughly speak the same language, and we want them both to work together. such that one knows what is a little bit ahead of the road. Right? You're going to have a junior who's learning, and the other one knows what is a little bit ahead, and is going to help guiding the steps to get there. But generally speaking, what we do is we have special or specific places in the organization where it makes sense. We have places in the organization where it doesn't make sense to have a junior because it's higher stakes, right? But some places we have a lot of leg room to make a lot of mistakes and to learn. And what we do is we build a playground in which they can make mistakes as fast as possible, such that they can learn and grow from there. With the moment in which we see that they start thinking about what's outside of their scope, that's the next promotion worthy kind of effort. Did I answer?
So you said that you like contractors. How do you work with them? I know I see them as a simple mercenaries, and their heart is never in the product and within
Yes.
the company. So if you could say.
Absolutely. So there's one trait about me is that I use irony a lot. So when I say I like them, I don't really. Exactly because of what you said. They're mercenaries, their heart is not in the product, which if you think about it, think about incentives. What are the contractor incentives? Get the money and run away and move to the next one, right? So how do you do it? Well, the way in which you can work with a contractor is aligning the incentives. Is building a system or a place in which somebody who wants to get the money and run away is actually valuable, right? I don't know, do you know Jeff Atwood from Coding Horror? The guy who built the Stack Overflow. So he has one post that I love that says that there are three kind of forces in every company that you're gonna find. It's that the first one is commandos, right? For me, contractors are commandos. It's the kind of people that you're gonna put a knife between the teeth, you're gonna throw them behind enemy lines, they're gonna kill everybody, and they're gonna get to product market fit, right? What happens with them afterwards? They get bored. What do bored people do? What they like to do? What they like to do? Kill people. Not great. So you have to push them out to somewhere else, right? Next people that comes is infantry, right? Infantry can kill also, but they also build, right? They can build things. They can recover the bridges that all the commandos destroyed. They can set everything up for scale, but they actually have their heart in the place. They can be there for a long while, right? That's more like product engineers, so to speak, right? The problem with infantry, what happens with people when they get bored? They do what they like. What do they like to do? Build. They're going to build 15 bridges, whatever, everything huge, completely unnecessary, early scalability, right? The classic problem of having things that are just too large. So what do? You push them out. Who comes after? What's the next force you need, right? The next force you need is police. What does police do? Not really. What do? I have no idea. Nothing. They just do nothing. They just sit there, put tickets, that's it. They just keep things calm. What do they like? To be there doing nothing. Right? They don't want to see change. They don't want anything happening. That's what kind of people is useful for that, or where do you need that kind of people? Really large companies that are optimizing for cost. They don't want to see big changes. They want everything to move slow, quietly, etc. Identify what the force is that you're dealing with and what is the use of it, and use them wisely. Where can you deploy contractors? Wherever you need to kill people. That's it. You don't put contractors in a city where you want to actually take care of that people. It's the wrong job. So one size does not fit all. You have to be really careful on how do you implement each one of these. I don't know if did I answer your question? Okay.
Okay, great. Do we have one more question? Yeah.
So you talked about beliefs at one point. So, what is the one belief you had while working in AWS or Cabify that is changed now, and why it is?
Beliefs. I changed opinions. Beliefs, I think that I chiseled them out. I improved them over time. I think I haven't changed so much as a person. I think I just became wiser by. I'm not saying that I'm a wise person. I just became a little bit wiser after being beaten up so many times, right? You learn some lessons. AWS, I joined or I went there because it was the cool people. It was, super cool place to work with, super nice to be there. They say, work hard, have fun, make history. Make history, really, you're making history if you're there. Depending on where you are in the company, it's going to matter more or less. Where I was specifically, I think it did make history. I think it was quite interesting to learn there. I moved outside of that because of a personal reason. My belief then, or maybe the way I changed as a person, was that I believe that I didn't need to sacrifice my life in favor of a job, which was a hard lesson, honestly, because when I was in Dublin, when I was moved to Dublin, I was with my family, and it took a hit on my whole family to go there for career reasons, but then personal reasons I decided to move out. I decided to detach where I work from where I live. And I still believe that that's the right thing to do. I still believe that relocation is violence, honestly. That's how I express it. When I moved to Cabify, my belief system didn't change much. What I realized was that sometimes you confuse yourself with what you believe as being the truth. It's not really, right? Doesn't have to be. Some other people will have different ideas. And honestly, the guy who has the money in the hand is right. You can do whatever you want, right? But if they're not willing to throw money at you, stop wasting your time, right? And when I moved from Cabify into Fonoa, what I believed was that you can be happy in the place you work, you can have fun, you don't need to, go through all the bullshit, you don't need to do all the crazy shit that formalism forces you to do, and that life can be simpler, right? I love simple. I really love simple. But, simple is not easy, right? I always say it's like quitting smoking. It's really simple. You just don't do it anymore. Did I say easy? No, I said simple, right? I don't know if that answers your question. Honestly, the best thing you can do is learn. Is pay attention to yourself, pay attention to the people around you, learn, listen twice, speak once. That's it. Did I answer your question? Good.
Okay, thanks everyone for questions. Pablo will be here later, so you can catch him if you have any more questions. Please give one big round of applause. Okay, thank you, Pablo. And our next session is a fireside chat with Fonoa's engineering managers, Antonio Krističević and Victor Torre. It will be moderated by my working colleague and a friend, Vesna Bilic, who is a lead technical program manager at Google. Please welcome them to the stage.
Yeah. Does that work?
Can you share one, or do you want
Yeah,
sure. No, we can.
here's the third one. Okay.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, let's start. Can you guys please introduce yourself? What's your role in Fonoa?
Hello, I'm Victor Torre, and living in Spain. I joined Fonoa 3.5 years ago as an engineering manager. I'm leading a team, a product team, that is leading one of the tax ID validation system. Previously, well, I can explain more about Fonoa, but previously I worked at Cabify with Pablo as well. So I interviewed him before, and then he interviewed me. Not really. At Cabify, I was infra engineer before, and then I became engineer manager of the infra team. Before that, I worked across scale-ups and small startups, mostly SaaS companies, B2C, but also B2B. And early in my career, I was working at consultancy, but I decided that was not my cup of tea. So I moved fast. That's basically my journey.
Hi, Antonio Krističević. Nice to meet you all. It's good to be on the other side of the podium this time. I joined Fonoa 5 years ago, 5-ish. The company was super small, maybe a handful of people. Interestingly, they had more lawyers and finance people than engineers, because I was actually the first in-house engineer with a bunch of other contractors who were there for, 6-ish months before that. And that was quite interesting. Like, why do you join a company that's like on the second page of Google search? I don't know, but they had an entity registered in Croatia. I looked them up, so it wasn't a scam, even though it was a COVID era. And I just did a leap of faith. The thing that tipped the scales for me was seeing the people on the other side, and I was attracted to people I believed I can learn from. 5 years later, I think that is the case. Still, I started as an engineer. We hired Victor, then another Victor, then a Pablo, and we had basically acquired the whole Cabify team at that point. And that was quite interesting. We started building the actual engineering culture and the actual engineering team, and really the progression and the speed of both the engineering team and the company was quite interesting. I basically built something that most of you are familiar with, which is fiscalization. Now we got 2.0 coming around. And I thought that Croatia was simply the wildest country out there with all the rules and regulations about VAT. Then I learned about Brazil and Mexico and other Latin countries. And I said, you know what, we're doing just fine. We built the foundation of that product. Nowadays, I'm an engineering manager leading a bunch of different teams in a bunch of different regions. We basically want to cover the entire world. Before that, I was actually working at a digital agency, like most of software engineers in Split. I was lucky enough to work in a long-term product where we were basically a product engineering team for that company. But I got exposed to a lot of horror stories by my immediate colleagues who I shared desk with. And I said, you know what, I'll rather look for something where I can actually build a product and be a part of the team instead of doing the same thing, but working as a contractor. The reason is kind of similar to Pablo's reason for joining Fonoa, which is, well, if I'm a contractor, I don't really have a say in things, right? You just do the job and shut up. So there I was.
Thank you so much. Speaking of product, can you tell us a little bit more about all the products that you have, the verticals inside the company, and what makes you happy there?
Okay, so we have all different products are related to the indirect tax lifecycle. So it's the transaction, since a seller or a buyer in a platform is onboarded, then they do the checkout, they are buying something. Then they do the transaction, so the payment is done, and then they need to report. They do the invoicing, and then they need to report that the invoice to the tax authority. So the first part of one of the spectrum of the life cycle is the onboarding part, which is where we do the tax ID validation. This is what the team that I'm leading right now. Then there's, after that, there's a tax determination. So doing the checkout when you are gonna buy, for example, you want to book your holidays in Booking or any other Airbnb-alike platform. So you want to see all the hotels or apartments. So every single piece of apartment, they need to calculate this tax determination. And there's a lot of different laws, a lot of different rules per different country. That's the tax determination part. After that, when you buy the product or the service, there's a payment, and then the transaction is committed. So then invoicing, which is what Antonio is leading right now, starts.
The tax man wants to know where the money is, and the whole world is going into that direction. Usually they would say the further away from Greenwich you are, the more shady the economy is, right? Balkans and Latam, yeah, Pablo is nodding. But now Germany is doing it, and our whole world is falling apart. Even Germans are introducing this stuff, which kind of tells you that, you know, everyone's moving in that direction. They want to know where the money is. And then finally, you need to report your VATs. Now, when I first met the founders, I was like, my God, this is so boring, and no one wants to do this. But that's where the money is. That's what's really fascinating. And if you sprinkle like big, you know, global businesses, imagine how many people are watching Netflix, how many users there are, millions, perhaps billions. How many Uber rides in the United States? Well, that's a pretty interesting engineering challenge. So taxes are inevitable. You have to pay them. Good for us. There's a lot of rides happening all the time. Also good for us. So that was an interesting combination.
Okay, would you call yourself tax experts?
Oh, God, no.
No.
How
I
do you
think-
code then?
We tried being tax experts when I first joined. We didn't have anyone who knew anything about taxes, yet we were building the tax software. It worked. 3 years later, so Francois and I, my colleague, we would say that we built this thing in 2 weeks. It's amazing. 3 years later, a real tax expert joined, and he said, "Well, this actually doesn't work." So not tax experts, no.
It works, but wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. What makes you happy at work?
I think what Antonio said. So I think the impact, at least for me personally, the impact that we have for really big companies is something that make me happy, and so it's really interesting. And this is something I learned at Fonoa. So before I was thinking, I don't know, all these big companies or big tech companies, they probably have tons or thousands of engineers. They can do whatever they want. How can we help them with taxes? So I couldn't figure this out before. And then I know, okay, it's a complex world. It's changing all the time. So you need proper tax experts, not us. So people who learn, who know the law, the regulation, they did all of this in the Big Four or even in the customers that we are serving right now. And yeah, I think so far we are making a lot of impact, and this is what made me happy. What about you, Antonio?
I was about to say, like, who said we're happy? No, we're super happy. I guess everyone has different motivations. For me, it was always like, you know, being a nerd in my, you know, college days. I like the challenge. I like being pushed. Sometimes also like the deadline. But it's really being in an environment where you don't go to die. That's basically what I wanted. That's what I got.
Okay. And when Pablo mentioned that you do a lot of deploys, can you describe one launch cycle? Like, how does it look like?
I can tell you what it looked like when I joined. So we joined and we're like doing release cycles. Hey, the release cycle is due in 2 weeks. When was the last time you deployed? Well, we were supposed to deploy last Wednesday, but then something happened, blah, blah, blah. It always does. And it took like a month to deploy something. So, okay, we're going to join a call. We're going to do a deployment together. We're holding hands through Zoom. And the guy opens up a notepad, not like VS Code or Vim or something, a notepad, not even Notepad++. And there's steps. 1 through 15 manual steps of the things that we had to do. Manually migrate a database and manually go into whatever Azure and build the code and release, zip it to, like, okay, this has to get better. It took us quite some time. Nowadays, it looks like, hey, we know what we kind of need to do. we're building this feature, and some, one or two or more engineers, depending on the scope of it, would take it, they understand it. If they don't, they're going to ask you a couple of things to a tax expert, not me, and they make the changes. You do the regular peer review and all of that, and you basically ship it. And if that happens, like Pablo said, like 100 times a day, you're just constantly in a habit of shipping. As soon as something hits master, you approved it. If it's in master or main, if you're PC, it needs to be healthy, needs to run in production, and that's it.
What does healthy mean?
Healthy in a sense of, is the change that I introduced in my system going to break something? We're at the end of the day, we're dealing with money, so you can't really be making random changes and hope for the best. So you would basically make sure that it was a lengthy process. People are very resistant to it at first, especially because you're working in such an industry where you're playing in high stakes. So a single mistake with a single invoice can be charged at, 500 euros. So if you multiply that by billions and billions and you leave it running something that's broken even for a couple of seconds, you basically created a liability of a couple of hundred of thousands of dollars. Now, Pablo would say, if it hurts, well, you should just do it more often, right? Don't wait for like 3 weeks to gain confidence, because you're not going to be any more confident. You're just going to pile up even more changes, and it's going to be even harder for you to get confidence. So small incremental changes, but also build the guardrails in your system that prevent it from going sideways, which took quite a lot of time, which is why I'm probably still the number one holder of the number of incidents in the company, even though I practically stopped coding a year ago. So a lot of incidents along the way, but if you learn from them, you will get to that point.
Okay. So when we talked in our intro session, I asked you, what would you like to present here today? And you said both that you would like, since you have a very big experience in your career, that you would really like to talk about differentiators. What makes your job different today in Fonoa compared to all the experience that you had earlier? And Pablo talked about async way of working. Engineers hate meetings. How do you then describe all of that? What does it mean for you?
I think that the key is let people make their own decisions, even on their own rituals and what they want to hold. If they want to hold a daily meeting, status meeting for 40 minutes, talking about what they did, what they are going to do, okay, let's be it. It turns out that people don't want that.
Did you push that ticket in progress? Is that done?
Yeah, let's move this from to do to in progress. So, I think it turns out that people don't like that. And people like more fast environments. They don't want to have meetings just talking about what they are doing and what is the status report. I think that's something interesting. And this is also something that I learned at Fonoa that I didn't learn before. That is how people behave, is what Pablo was saying. So you put the correct incentives, they are going to do you need to drive them into what you want to do or what the organization want to do.
Okay, but do you set any deadlines?
Yes,
Okay.
but let me explain.
Yeah.
A controversial topic. Of course we do, because what's the is it Peter's principle, right? So if you give engineers 3 months to ship something, it's going to be a spaceship, but maybe you don't need a spaceship, maybe a skateboard will do just fine. We do that quite radically, in fact, because we were not able to cover like the entire world with a product suite that we have, because we gave loose deadlines so we can polish the thing. Because what it turns out is that in our line of business, serving the customers that we serve, it's actually a negative thing if you're adding complexity and covering 100% of something, building a spaceship when they don't really need a spaceship. So we don't throw people under the bus and say, you need to deliver something that's impossible, because that's not healthy. But you always have to make sure that you don't give yourself so much time, because you're not going to be thinking creatively about it. You're just going to suck up all the available time and eventually, build a system that's harder to maintain because you added all the bells and whistles that you don't actually need.
Okay, I understand how it works in theory, but in practice, you get a request, right, to create something.
To do something, yes.
Yeah. And it needs to be done by some day, or no one sets deadline?
I think the best we do here is ask the customer. And sometimes they said, no, we want this from yesterday, so we want this ASAP. But that's not true. So we need to dig dive and understand what is the pain, what is the problem, why do you need this now, or what do you want to do to have this today? Are they willing to pay more money? Are they? And when you start digging these questions, I think in the end there's not a real urgency that you need to deliver this by this date. Also,
Okay, but how do you hold the engineers accountable for the deadline? That's my question. Like you said, everyone has autonomy. So you provide a deadline and people need to deliver by then. If they're late, they will raise a risk, or you don't have meetings, you don't have Scrum. Like, how do you make sure that things are done in time and that things are escalated? What's your collaborative mode?
I would say more often than not, maybe a little bit controversial, it doesn't really matter. Because if you think about our typical customer, big strategic enterprise, tens of thousands of employees, imagine them as a big oil ship, the biggest vessel on the sea. And then you have a company that's like 50-ish engineers. It's like a speedboat. So they tell us something needs to be out by, for example, I'm gonna obfuscate a little bit of details, but a real story. Something needs to be out by 8th of December. Okay, what happens if it's not? Right, we're talking with customers. Oh, usually nothing would really happen. They're just playing hardball with you. So this is where engineering managers come in, because obviously there's an incentive from a commercial team to say, yes, we can over deliver on this, which is where we step in. And sometimes really it doesn't matter. Sometimes you will deliver and they will not go live for another 2 months. So you tend to learn that they measure time different than you. And then sure, we can commit to something internally. Internal commitment is not the same as the external commitment. And the most important thing is something that we tell to all of our engineers, which is, it's fine. It just needs to be communicated. No one is gonna mind if you tell them, 2 weeks before the deadline, you tell them it's gonna take 3 weeks. It's fine. But if you tell someone, the day before that it's gonna be a week late, all of a sudden it's a big problem. So I guess as long as you communicate that on time, which no one prevents you from communicating, even if you're not in a meeting. You don't need a meeting for that. You have all the tools like Slacks and Zooms and whatnot. Just let me know, right? If everything's, if you don't say anything, I'll consider that it's running fine. And we're good.
Yeah, thanks. You touched upon engineering manager. Can you explain how do you do engineering management at Fonoa?
interesting topic. So it depends on how do you define engineering manager or engineering management. Yeah, I think it's a mix of people management, owning delivery, also product discovery, product definition, sales, cat herding as well. So yeah, it's a lot of things. But on each different company, I think they do different engineering management. At least in Fonoa, we have this sales ingredient that we are a B2B enterprise, so we have to be close to sales. I think we all learned that the hard way. So sales relationship is interesting because in the end it's people's problems. So you need to find their incentives. But yeah, in general, it's this different kind of skills and traits that you need to learn by doing mostly.
You want my 2 cents? engineering is probably the oldest function in the company, and our tenure is quite long. I've been here for 5 years. These two have been here for 4 years, which kind of naturally means that you build up a lot of influence in the organization. So you probably end up influencing a lot more than you would if you joined as an EM in a established company with 20, 30 years of operations behind them, which kind of means that I wouldn't say the engineering is a solved problem. It never is. But when you look at the organization as a whole, more often than not, the bottleneck is going to be someplace else. And because you've been here for quite some time, you know how to navigate it, which means that if you're excited about not just, being in pull requests and, discussing, architecture over and over again, there's going to be plenty of work, on both fronts, which means you get to experience not just the product engineering side, but also influencing well outside of that. So you don't get to complain and say, oh my God, my sales counterpart is being this and that. No, well, you had an opportunity to have a conversation with them. You have an opportunity to speak to your clients, to your partners. So you can kind of make a nice living for yourself if you do things right.
Is then engineering manager's role to translate sales requirements into technical language, and how technical EM role is at Fonoa?
I think because we give problems to engineers, we need to understand the problem. We need to understand how big of a problem it is. We don't solve the problem. We don't need to tell people how they are going to solve the problem. But for sure, we need to understand what they mean. So we need to be this translator between what the customer is asking, requesting, or what sales is giving you to the table with a customer problem. And if this is feasible, if this is something that we should do or not, how big of the problem is. I think, yes, in most cases, we are this translator. But in the end, the team owns the problem, and they are the ones who figure out how to solve this problem. We are there. We are designing the system at a different layer. But more like introducing guardrails and poking the holes when there's a solution or there's a proposal. You think, okay, this is something that the customer is willing to accept, or this is solving the customer problems or not.
I think the technical aspect really comes front and center with challenging engineers to simplify, because you can make things really, really complex when they don't really have to be. And I would say this is one of the key elements of our job, thinking of the system as a whole, thinking about where we want to be in 3 to 5 years, for example, and at the same time making sure we make the system as simple as possible, because if you stick around for some time, all of those complexities that you added a couple of years ago are going to catch up. So it's always challenging the engineers to find the simplest approach possible, and like Victor said, make sure that you have installed guardrails that prevent wrong decisions from being made.
Okay, so you have a system where you review their work, but they're autonomous by the book, right? And how does that autonomy goes along with seniority breakdown at Fonoa? How would you describe seniority levels?
I think as long as you delegate the whole problem and you forget about it, I think the less you are involved in that problem, or the less you are involved in solving a customer problem, the more seniority I think the engineer or engineers are showing or proving by delivering. You need to go there and see how it goes, or set these guardrails, or see that there's a lot of complexity that it's unnecessarily. I think that's one of the keys of seniority, but it's hard to.
For one, I don't really like the conventional wisdom of saying someone is a staff if they influence multiple teams, or you're a principal if you influence the entire organization. Because what's the incentive then, right? If you have like 10 people who aim to be staff, they're all going to be doing cross-team work. But is that really the thing that you need? So I think that's more of a side effect of your circle of influence in your ability to deliver and navigate the vague problems. Because when you're a junior, you kind of know what's expected of you. You're going to get some feedback if your manager is doing a good job. But roughly speaking, you're going to get some feedback. You're going to get a well-defined problem, and you're going to solve it. As you grow more in seniority, the scope of those problems and the vagueness of those problems grow. So then you have people who at the highest level don't really get problems assigned to them. They understand where the problems are, they identify them, and they solve the right problems. And that's a really tricky thing to do. Because once you hit that certain level, there is only so many, super complex big problems worth solving. And you don't want to have people who are just creating problems for you. Because that's not going to help the company, and it's certainly not going to help you.
Okay, so do you have more seniors or juniors?
I think historically we start the company hiring most seniors, so I think it's more seniors than juniors. I think we start hiring juniors maybe
now we're probably
2 years
like
ago.
70-30, because you have to remember the context when we started. Fully remote, COVID era, super confusing times. We're just setting up our culture, and if you have someone who needs the attention and in order, or not really the attention, but like the appropriate level of guidance, and you're a startup working fully remote that's still experimenting and looking for product market fit, well, that's not really the best environment to cultivate juniors, at least not most of them. Some of them would succeed, but I would say most would feel burnt out real quick.
Okay, and how would you describe, Pablo touched upon a hiring process, like what makes your hiring process different, and how do you choose candidates, and how do you make them choose you?
So what changed about the hiring process, I think, stop asking questionary technical questions or whiteboarding.
Reverse a linked list, Google.
Lead codes, so all of that, I think, we didn't need that. So if you learn how someone is behaving or how someone behaved in the past, you can foresee how they are behaving in the future. So I think this is a very good lesson about the hiring process.
Yeah.
Keep going.
No brilliant jerks. I hate that type. I hope that I never came across as one. There's a lot of people who can solve a lot of interesting technical problems, a lot of people who we met who would never succeed in this environment because you're a jerk. And ultimately, your day has 24 hours, and you can only produce so much as a single person. But if you team up, you can do a lot more. But if you're a brilliant jerk, no one will want to team up with you. So that's a problem. But no, honestly, I do enjoy lead coding. But we don't do that for an interview because that's a completely different kind of skill. What we need is people who can solve problems. Most of the time, that problem is not related to binary trees, at least at Fonoa.
How do you know that people know how to solve problems?
Well, we give them a challenge that kind of resembles the thing that they will be doing. But, we had some, candidates who would tell us, well, you're actually asking me to make a time investment. Well, yeah, we're both making a time investment. You're not under a deadline. You can do it in a couple of hours, and we're going to have a nice conversation. What ends up happening is that people who enjoy it flock to it, which is kind of a natural filter for you, because people will weed themselves out if they don't like it, which is probably a strong indicator that they wouldn't be successful nor happy in this kind of environment. So it has a dual purpose in a way.
Okay, and how do you make them choose Fonoa?
We're funny in our interviews, we try to keep it light. So we spend like first, we try to spend like first 10, 20 minutes getting them comfortable. Pablo is talking about his past in Argentina and all of that. And it's a two-way street. They're also treating us.
Yeah, I was about to say that. So interviews are two-way street. So we interview them and they interview. We try to make them interview us. So they realize that, okay, this is a place where I want to work or not. And I think we put a lot of effort that so the candidate knows more or less what he's gonna have if he's hired. Or
one of my professors at college said he had this weird method where he wouldn't be the one asking the questions, you would be asking questions to him, and depending on the quality of your questions, you would either pass or fail. And sometimes maybe candidates can think this is kind of lazy, but we do tend to do this quite a lot in our interviews where we turn the tables, right? We have 90 minutes, whatever, 2 hours. Let's turn the tables. Let's see what kind of questions you can come up with. What are the things that matter to you? Where do you lean naturally? What are the kind of topics you want to talk about? And then we can have a nice conversation on the back of that.
yeah, I remember one candidate. It was not at Fonoa that the only question was, what kind of laptop I gonna get if I get the job? So you have a lot of
if
data
you say
points. with
HP,
this.
he's like, nope.
You have a lot of information with this question.
What do you eat for lunch and stuff like that? Okay. What are your biggest learnings from the experience here working with so many clients on such important thing like with such an impact? Huh? Yeah, exactly.
That taxes
Yeah.
are forever. That's one.
Taxes are important, they cost. So.
Yeah. Another one is that every single organization is different. Every single organization has its own different people, different environment, different culture. Even though they have probably thousands of people to do their job and their business, but they probably have different internal politics, internal wars, or internal deadlines. So yeah, you need to. I think that's a valuable lesson. So even large organizations, as I said before, they are struggling with some things, and you can learn them. You can help with those things and resolve that pain by listening to them and by understand what is the problem they have. Another lesson is how to treat salespeople, which is something is ongoing.
I'll take a different turn. I'll take a look at it from a career perspective. I became a strong believer that job hopping is fantastic, but it has diminishing returns. And this was, when you spend enough time in a job where you can see how decisions you made several years ago are impacting your day-to-day life, you cannot experience that if you're just shifting from one role to another. Now, if you're operating at an EM or above role, usually your influence or your impact is not going to be in tomorrow, right? Your time horizon is much wider, which means that if you see people who have been, and nothing against anyone, I don't know if there's a job hoppers in here, but if you see people who are operating at, for example, head or VP level, and they're doing that for 6 to 12 months, what are the effects of your actions that you're actually going to witness and see? So that was a really interesting one because I got to clean up a lot of mess that I created 5 years ago.
I just wanted to ask, what is it that you're not proud of?
Well, for one, we have this rule where every API that we create must be supported forever. Like you don't really force your customers to change the integration. You can't really do that. And all the decisions I made 5 years ago are haunting me right now. So we had to do a lot of magic tricks in order to migrate whatever we built 4 or 5 years ago to where we are now. A lot of 3 a.m. wake-ups, but proud to say that this is going to be my second New Year's Eve without being woken up. I can feel it.
Well, great. Would that happen if you didn't have autonomy back then?
Would I be making those mistakes? Well, we're all making those mistakes, right? If I did something terribly wrong that was super obvious, people would tell you. It's not like, we give you autonomy and you do whatever you want, right? It's just that it made a lot of sense to everyone, all 3 of us, all 20 of us, it made a lot of sense. So it was a learning experience, not just for me, but for the entire company, because now we can reflect and say, this decision was deceivingly good, now I know better. And that's the learning that you can't get. Had I left, a couple of years ago, I would have never learned it.
You need to make mistake to learn, right? And what's your biggest lesson?
I think that was one of the biggest learnings. Yeah, what you did 3 years ago is gonna stay there. So what you design today is gonna stay there 5 years later. So you need to take care of designing things for at least the customer-facing parts of the platform. So all the public APIs, for example, because we have this motto of we want to support a customer forever. So yeah, this is one of the biggest takeaways.
Thank you so much, guys. Is there any question from the audience?
Dignite ruke da vas vidim.
Everyone is hungry. We have food.
Jelena će prozivati ako...
So hi again. I'm gonna be a little bit boring now, but since you're doing taxes, right? This is a critical part.
We can't do your taxes.
Yeah. This is a critical part, of every government's operations and so on and so forth. Do you integrate AI in your everyday workflows or in your product? Or do you have any plans on integrating? If yes, why? Or if not, why not? Right? And that's it.
Yes, there are two ways that there are two dimensions that we see when we think about AI. There is operational efficiency. How do I use AI in my day-to-day work to make myself or my colleagues more efficient? So that's not only applicable to engineers, right? So as engineers, of course, you're going to use like the greatest and latest tools. Just don't abuse them, but like all of your regular LLMs. I think that goes without saying by now. With other roles, it's slightly more nuanced. With tax managers, we're trying to automate the tax research that they do. So imagine you have the entire world and all the governments are constantly changing something. Tax rates go up, down, left, right. You don't really know. And it's happening all the time. For example, Croatia, but now multiply that by many different countries. So AI can really help you there. You're gaining a lot of efficiency because you no longer need to click F5 refresh on that website to see if something new was published. And the second dimension is the product value, right? How do I embed the AI technology into my products so that they are more valuable for your customers? Now the trick there is a lot of really good staple products are actually doing this in a way that's kind of weird. We're just going to add an AI chatbot, but that has nothing to do with their business. Like, I don't know if, probably most of you use WhatsApp, but how many of you actually use the AI feature that was embedded there? I don't know. I just want to chat to my friends. Who cares about that? So it means that you actually need to understand what is the core value proposition of your product. What is the metric that matters to your customer? In our case, I'll give you one example. It's, I want to be compliant, right? I want to submit all of the receipts, invoices that I created, but sometimes world is not perfect and it will not succeed. At that point, I need to go in and manually fix it. Otherwise, I'm going to get a penalty. So what matters to our customers is being compliant. You can express this as a percentage of successes. So you want to get that to as close to 100% as possible. Now, you don't want to hallucinate because I don't think the tax authorities are going to like that. But you can make, really clever suggestions, right? If the tax authority tells you, well, this postcode that you sent in India doesn't really make sense, maybe we can make a clever suggestion so that we improve the metric, which is how fast can I recover from that? So it's not just, I wouldn't say it's a naive implementation where you say, oh, we're just going to, throw this, photo of an item from AWS and say, what is the tax rate on that? We're still not there. But there are elements that can't be improved, and that's something that we're working on.
Thanks. So as EMs, I'm sure you have conversations with your engineers about their growth, about their careers, their paths. How do you frame these conversations? So what are the options that are put on the table for them? And in fact, the same question for you. How do you see your career paths? Is it only engineering? Do you see any other paths in this company and in general? Thanks.
So the question is, how do we give incentives for growth to our engineers, and how do we apply that to ourselves, right? Yeah, I think one of the engineering managers, you need to align company goals or company incentive with personal growth with engineers, and this is one part of the job. So because we have this different level or different layer of visibility across the organization, we know what's going on in different parts of the organization. We can propose and talk to the engineers and say, hey, I think we have an opportunity for you on this different project. This is something we usually do, at least in my team. For ourselves, I think the key is automate your job as much as possible. So if you can self-manage your team or make them self-manage, I think that's one of the key of success. Does that answer your question?
Are you holding regular one-on-ones, and do you have performance reviews and feedback loops?
Yeah, I mean, one-on-ones, we talk with our people.
We joked about this.
We talk async.
No. Well, yeah, but no. We joked about this on our way here in the car. I'm like, we're talking about what are the things that are controversial. I'm like, what do you guys think about one-on-ones? Some people don't like to talk. There are some people who really don't like to talk, and you go in and like, what do you want to talk about? No, nothing. How's everything? Oh, it's good. Are you happy? Yeah, I'm happy. So obviously, like, you should still do them, especially for these kinds of conversations. But having them, each and every week, going over, a checklist is not really a thing that we do. Like, if we're talking about performance, yes, this is obviously a very important aspect of your career, and it's good for us as EMs to know where you want to go. But if you want to go in a direction, like I want to be a Rust expert and write some, optimize some, I don't know, thingy, well, is that really what the company needs? Maybe it's better for me to be transparent and tell you, well, I'm happy to support you, but you're not creating impact by doing that work. And sometimes it's a tough pill to swallow, but we need to have these honest conversations so that no one is surprised, when we're having conversations about performance.
Hey, I have a question. So Pablo said you want to make doing the wrong thing painful, and some of the behaviors that are not encouraged are blame, victimism, heroism. So I'm sure as engineering managers, you come across those behaviors. So I'm wondering, like, you can give specific example, like, how do you ensure that people feel that it was a bad thing and they feel the pain after doing this?
Interesting question. Yeah, we do see these things. I think Pablo.
I mean, they're the managers of engineers, so I'm sure they're the first line of experiencing this.
Yeah, for example, for blame, I think any type of drama, Pablo is gonna get triggered. That's for sure. So
you have a board where you list people who did something wrong.
So
Is that clear?
They're no longer there.
I think we have a tendency of realizing when there's drama, and I think the best way is to attach the drama and try to visualize the drama, give people tools and framework about what they are doing. So because some people don't realize what they are doing because that's the environment where they are living, or culturally, or there are many personal situations that they can come across. But you need to be there to visualize and to help people to say, hey, what you are doing is this. This has a name. This is drama because of this, and this is how the drama works. So this is not something that Pablo made up. So this is something that people study in the 70s, probably. So yeah, I think we need to have this tough conversation with the people and say, hey, what you are doing is not helping the organization. It's not helping us as engineer managers. You are making me work because we are trying to. You are toxic in the organization in some ways. It depends on the kind of a trait or behavior. But
Okay, thanks. And just
I
as you
think Pablo
said,
want to.
yeah, and just as you said, people are gone. I'm just wondering what's the ratio of those that improve and those that are gone.
So so I'm a father. Okay, let me start there. What's the opposite of love? Anybody? Indifference. That's the opposite of love. How do you train a dog? You reward it when it does the right thing, you ignore it when it does the wrong thing. Which sadly is exactly the same thing I do with my child. Because we're mammals. We are exactly the same kind of animals. So what does work? Rewarding the right behavior and not leaving any room for the wrong behavior. When I see drama, what I will do is I'm going to call it out. I'm going to say, that's blame. Where's the blame? Who's to blame? Point. Please, go ahead, point. Okay, so what are you going to do about it? Are you going to just sit down and cry, or are you going to do something? Your choice. Your choice. You decide. You own your fucking destiny, man. It's on you. You want me to do something about it? You're going to be generating work for me? That's a low performer. You want to be a low performer? Nah, not really. So go fix it, man. Stop crying. What's the point?
And how often do you acknowledge the good work?
Sorry, how often?
How often do you acknowledge the good work?
All the time.
Kudo.
All the time.
Yeah, I think every day or every week there's a couple of. Yeah, we have
Cake.
like a.
Good work cake.
Yeah, we have like a a channel where we try to reward and visualize when something or when someone is
Nice.
doing a good thing.
More questions? We have a couple of minutes left. Yeah.
Hi, me again.
Hey, man.
Wanted to ask, about this asynchronous work. Where you don't have meetings regularly or things like that. So do you have some? For example, do team members give their statuses on, I don't know, Slack channels and things like that? Do you have decisions like, for example, if you're communicating asynchronously, so someone will answer something later, and it can be lost in the chat or somewhere else? Do you have a system for documenting decisions, and also, for example, for the work, how do you do that? Like document the things internally and what someone did. So, for example, you mentioned that you need to leave the system better than you found it. So, how does that work in real life? Yeah.
Let me first repeat back the question. How do we track progress? How do we make decisions? And the third one was how we update. Okay. Improving the system. Okay. So don't walk away thinking that meetings are, terrible. Don't do them. It still happens, right? We give engineers an autonomy, but we're not going to be sticking to a framework like it's religion, right? Every day at 10:15, you need to, come in here and tell me what you did. I don't really care, right? That's whatever, status report. The autonomy comes, it has a lot of benefits, and there's a lot of trust that has to be built into it, which means that our expectation is that you will ship. If you're shipping everything, I don't really care about the status, right? It just works. Usually it will mean you create some kind of visibility for your work, whatever form you choose, as long as it reaches the right audience. It doesn't matter. How do we make decisions? I would say that, or I think a lot of people would agree that most of your best ideas and thoughts don't really come in, whenever you're sitting in a chair somewhere. Maybe you're taking a walk, maybe you're taking a shower. So yes, we do optimize for these asynchronous decisions, but we do have a lightweight process that we follow, such that you don't get a person making a decision for the entire team in isolation and then just, coding something up over the weekend and saying, you know what, from starting Monday, we're going to do things this way. And that's not usually how it works. You make a decision, you make a proposal, you will get comments on your documents, and perhaps you will even meet, right? Whatever works for that particular group of people, and then you will record it. We have a central repository of all the decisions that we made as a team, and we can always go back to it and say, this is why we made a decision, this is the trade-offs that we made, we were fine with them, we move forward. And it really helps shift the narrative from the blame to, look, the people who made those decisions had best intentions in mind. You even have a document that proves that. Maybe they didn't have all the information, but they had courage to make a decision. So I hope that kind of shines a little bit more of light on how we do things.
Imamo još pitanja? Jedno zadnje? Ili ste jako gladni?
Od čega su fritule?
Neću ništa otkривati. Keu. Dobro, ja ne vidim ruku. Je li to onda vrijeme da zaključimo? Thank you so much. Hvala Vesna. Thank you. Viktor and Antonio.
Thank you, guys.
Ok, hvala svima evo što ste bili danas još s nama. Mi nastavljamo, dakle ovo nam je zadnji meetup ove godine, nastavljamo istom dinamikom, jednom kvartalno ćemo raditi evente, vjerojatno tu u Algebri ili možda ako nam se javi neki sponzor s velikim uredom možemo doći i kod njih u goste. To smo jednom već napravili, bilo je super. Ako je netko, odnosno nečija firma zainteresirana za suradnju, za sponzorstvo, naravno javite se meni ili Filipu. Također, ako tražite engineering menadžere, ako imate otvorene pozicije, to nam možete poslati, mi to naravno podijelimo na našoj grupi, to je besplatno i mislim da je win-win za sve vas koji ste tu u community-u. Eto, dosta govorancije, idemo van jesti i piti, lijepo se zabavite i hvala vam puno još jednom na svemu.